Hello and welcome to this James the Bike Guy, where today we're taking a look at the Gen 5 version of Trek's Dual Sport Do-All Hybrid. And the one in front of us here is the top-end version, the Dual Sport 3, that promises to offer some lightweight, fitness-style riding with the capability to go off-road as well. So in this video, we're going to check out the Dual Sport 3 Gen 5. I'll go over the features and designs of this bike, and then we'll find out exactly what it weighs. And starting off with the Gen 5 Dual Sport. Now, if you've seen any of my prior videos, which I'll have linked just above on the Dual Sport, this bike has been an evolution of what they're considering that do-all hybrid. And by do-all, it's really pulling in both the capability of a light trail bike with some of the speed of a fitness style hybrid. Now, by fitness style, I'm talking about a bike in Trek's lineup called their FX, which really draws from both the road bike side of things, but puts you in a position where you're upright and can see into traffic and carry things along, while also blending in the performance that you might get out of their entry-level mountain bike called the Marlin. In which case, the Marlin has both the ability to carry some stuff and be a commuter, but the capability of going off-road. Now, with all of that together, you may notice that this bike is kind of missing one of the major things that you often think about with a dual sport style bike, and that is that it doesn't have suspension up front. Now, this was a departure from the Gen 4 version of this bike, which did have suspension. But instead, what Trek has done is they've opted to go for more compliance coming out of the tires rather than out of the fork. Now, there's a couple main benefits to that. The first is you're going to save a lot of weight. A standard style fork like that is much lighter than a suspension fork. It also requires less maintenance. And when they're able to go to these wider tires, which now the Dual Sport is offering a 2-inch wide tire on a 650B rim. And what that 650B means is the rim size is 27.5 inches rather than the prior generation's 700C rim, which was 29 inches, meaning that this bike has a wider tire than the prior version, a smaller wheel, but because tire height is a function of width, it's a ratio. As the tire gets wider, the tire also gets taller, meaning that this has much more compliance built into the tire. So for kind of higher speed vibrations, things like that, this tire is going to handle the bumps much better than what a suspension fork would have had. You trade off just a little bit of that suspension on really hard hits to get a bike that's going to be overall much lighter than the prior generation, a bit more simple, and just easier to move around. Now, all the dual sports in the DS lineup have this aluminum frame. It's their Alpha Gold aluminum, which means it's shaped in butted tubing. It's got internal cable routing, which I really love how clean this is going into that headset cup. Goes right in, out of the way, means that you don't have anything to snag when you're putting it on a bike rack, locking it up to something. And this Alpha Gold aluminum frame has mounts underneath to be able to run a bag in the triangle of the bike. You've got both a down tube and a seat tube water bottle mount. With that, if we go out back, you're going to see that the rear of the bike has mounts for fenders and a rack to go on back. That meaning that this bike has lots of capability to carry gear, and up front, the fork of this bike is one of the places that you're going to see the changes between the most basic and cost-effective Dual Sport 1 and this top-end version, the Dual Sport 3. Now, all of them are going to have mounts to be able to run fenders or a pizza-style rack, but this one has an OCLV carbon fiber fork. So that means this fork is carbon fiber, which is doing two things for you. The first, it's going to both lighten up the bike, and the second is that carbon fiber is going to absorb more vibrations than a metal style fork. Now, an easy way that you could demonstrate this at home, because carbon is organic material, if you were to drop it, say, drop a 2x4, it's going to make a thud, a little bit of noise. But if you take a metal pipe and drop it, it's going to bounce and reverberate quite a bit. And so that means that that vibration is being damped before it comes up to the handlebar. Now on the Dual Sport 2, that's an aluminum fork, so you get the light weight but not the vibration absorption. And on the Dual Sport 1, it's steel, meaning it's the most cost-effective way. Now also on comfort, on the Dual Sport 3, you're going to get these ergonomic style grips. Super nice to see. All Dual Sports are going to be 1x shifting, meaning that your shifter is going to be only on one side. And in this case, on the Dual Sport 3, we've got 10 speeds. And those 10 speeds are running through the super wide range cassette via the Shimano Q's drivetrain. So the Q's drivetrain is new for, I think it was 23, it might have been 24 when it originally came out. It has a clutch mechanism in the derailleur, which means that it's going to keep the chain from kind of jumping around, bouncing, making noise, that sort of stuff. But it also takes a lot of the cues from, say, their mountain bike drivetrain to be pretty darn robust. And the drivetrain is super wide with this 11 to 48 tooth cassette, and it drives forward to this 1x crankset, meaning no shifting up front, one less thing to go wrong, so it makes it super easy. And I love that Trek is running this threaded bottom bracket to make things nice and reliable and super easy to service. Now, speaking of reliable, when you're talking Dual Sport 3, the brakes on the bike are going to be some Shimano hydraulic disc brakes. Now, hydraulic disc brakes do a couple of things. It gives you a lot of braking power, especially compared to rim brakes and mechanical brakes. But it also means that the pads are going to self-advance as they wear, meaning a lot less maintenance. And you're going to be replacing the pads and bleeding the fluid at wider spaced intervals than, say, adjusting a cable setup. Other nice thing to talk about that comes with the bike is something simple, but something I really like. Right back here, it's got a direct mount setup for a rear kickstand. It's a nice clean way to add a kickstand if you're into that kind of thing, and keeps it from being one of those kickstands that rattles around as you're riding down the trail. Now that we've taken a look at the features and designs of this bike, let's go ahead and find out what it weighs. The actual weight of the Trek Dual Sport 3 is going to come in and weigh 26.74 pounds. Well, thanks for joining me to check out the Trek Dual Sport 3. For $1,049, is this a good buy or would you look elsewhere? Let me know down in the comments below, and definitely browse the channel to check out more videos like this to see as well.